radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 37, recorded on Friday, May 21st from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we'll be taking a look at the election audit currently underway in Maricopa County, Arizona. But first, the headlines.
The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
First up in headlines, the House passed a bill creating a January 6th commission to investigate what happened that day amid GOP opposition. This was supposed to be bipartisan, Jason.
It was a little bit more bipartisan than I think Kevin McCarthy wanted.
In a 252 to 175 vote, the House created an independent commission to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. 35 Republicans voted for it, including, Liz Cheney, and then 34 other more sane Republicans. I used to use more sane
very loosely.
Right. Under the bill, the commission would include 5 members, including a chair appointed by the Democratic leaders of Congress, and another 5, including a vice chair appointed by a Republican leader. So this was a bipartisan commission. That was the whole idea of this, to look into what happened in the January 6th attacks or the insurrection.
A lot of people criticize Nancy Pelosi for agreeing to all the Republican demands while setting up the framework of this, including the equal membership on both sides and also the shared ability to veto subpoena requests.
Well, then what are your thoughts on it?
I'm all for it if they want to have an independent investigation into what transpired. I think the FBI is already doing a pretty good job in actually rounding up the people that they're able to find using social media and the videos taken and things like that. I don't know what the goal of this commission is going to be, and that's really the Republican criticism is like, well, it's too broad in scope. I'm just not sure if their attempts are trying to figure out like who were the ringleaders involved in this, how was it coordinated, that sort of thing. I would get behind, but I'm not sure what the focus of it is going to be.
Well, and a big part about why Republicans are against this is because maybe some of them will have to testify in front of this commission. Or at least you have Kevin McCarthy, who may have to testify about how he had his phone call with Donald Trump.
Which has been previously reported, yes.
So while I am happy that it did pass the House, it will most likely die in the Senate because of the Senate filibuster. And Joe Manchin is absolutely shocked, I tell you, that it's going to do that.
The person responsible for protecting the filibuster is surprised that it's going to be used in a entirely partisan, disingenuous way.
Well, he initially came out saying that, oh yeah, this is totally going to pass the Senate. Like, this is such a good bipartisan bill. This is definitely going to pass. Why did you think this was going to pass?
There's really no such thing as bipartisanship.
Once this passed, Mitch McConnell immediately said that he was opposed to it, and he was going to get as many Republicans opposed to it as well. And Manchin's response was literally, well, that's so disheartening. That's a quote. He just called it so disheartening. Our government is literally broken, and Joe Manchin's just, well, I'm disappointed. Are you kidding me?
He really is the Democratic Susan Collins. Speaking of Susan Collins, she is currently under federal investigation for an alleged scheme to illegally finance her re-election campaign. A recently unsealed search warrant application shows the FBI believes a Hawaii defense contractor illegally funded $150,000 to a pro-Collins super PAC and reimbursed donations to Collins' campaign. There's no indication that Collins or her team were aware of any of it, though that would be rather surprising given the details.
I say, however,
Collins helped the contractor at issue, then called Navatech and since renamed the Martin Defense Group, secure an $8 million Navy contract before most of the donations took place. So if she wasn't aware, that was awfully kind of them to pay her back for her political favor.
No kidding. And I mean, let's be real here. So this was their CEO who was doing most of the stuff, where he was funneling all this $150,000 through like a shell company that was eventually found out. And then on top of that, he was actually reimbursing his own family members for paying into or donating to Collins' campaign.
Not the first time we've heard of these kinds of illegal schemes within the GOP.
No, not at all. And again, to Susan Collins' credit, she probably has no idea, potentially, right? Benefit of the doubt.
Allegedly.
But man, it's a really interesting coincidence.
That it's the same company that she also helped get a lucrative defense contract just before this took place.
Yep. Remember, she's the one that we rely on to not be corrupt and stupid.
should have never been reelected. Everybody thought she was done. You had the chance, Maine.
They screwed it up. And in more depressing news, in a challenge to Roe, the Supreme Court is now reviewing a Mississippi abortion law. And while the decision is probably not going to come down anytime soon, we'll probably see something along the lines of next year.
Next year around this time is what I've heard, yeah.
This is really bad.
It's what everyone's been feared is going to be coming ever since the Republicans stole the Supreme Court seat.
Let's talk a little bit about this case, too. The whole point of this case goes around the idea of viability. And it's actually not as much an attack on Roe, but a much later case, which is Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which reaffirmed some sections of Roe v. Wade. Where in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, you had the Supreme Court say that you could not unduly burden a woman who was pregnant so that she couldn't get an abortion. They said you could definitely burden her, but it couldn't be unduly burdened. And what that meant, who the hell knows? And that was on purpose vague as well. What else am I going to say? Okay. So as many of you probably already know, many states started passing time frame bans on abortion, including Mississippi's 15-week abortion ban. Now, there are other states that go even much farther than this. So for example, like Georgia, and I think even Ohio, ban abortions after 6 weeks, which is effectively banning all abortions. But the argument for the Mississippi abortion law is 15 weeks enough time to actually plan and make a proper decision on an abortion where you can actually effectively ban it after 6 weeks, thus ruling out the idea of viability. The issue then comes down to is it's actually not that hard for them to rule in favor of this abortion ban, which then makes it much easier for the dominoes to fall in other states. Once you take down the 15-week abortion ban, you can take down the 10-week abortion ban, the 6-week abortion ban, effectively banning all abortion, making abortion permanently unavailable to anyone in the country.
And effectively overturning Roe v. Wade.
Pretty much.
Which has been the Republican issue for, I think, my entire life. That is what initially drew the evangelicals to the Republican Party. And continuing in that line, Texas just passed a law banning abortion after a, quote, heartbeat is detected, which is not an actual heartbeat. It can literally be just a movement of what will later become heart cells.
Correct.
And that is generally considered to be at 6 weeks. That's why we talked about 6 weeks for the other states. So Texas joins them, and that does effectively ban all abortion because 6 weeks, usually before anyone actually knows that they're pregnant. And this bill, which takes effect in September, makes no exception for pregnancies that are the result of rape or incest, because why not be half a monster when you can completely be a monster?
When you can go full Giuliani.
But it does include a rare provision that allows individual citizens to sue anyone they believe may have been involved in helping a pregnant individual violate this ban.
It's because Giuliani's a monster, that's why.
So that just opens the door for literally anyone to just sue any abortion provider whenever they want.
Don't laugh at my joke, it's okay. I'll be aware of it. So how likely is this to happen? Well, we need to understand that there really aren't any good outcomes here because, let's face it, our Supreme Court is screwed thanks to Donald Trump. What we used to have to do with...
Thanks to Mitch McConnell.
Well, sure, okay, fine. I mean, it can be both. They're not mutually exclusive.
And the Federalist Society.
Yes, okay. You see, because in cases like this...
And religion.
Because in cases like this, we usually result on hoping that John Roberts will be the swing vote and that we can kind of appeal to his institutionalism, which basically means that he's so concerned about the image of the court and he wants to preserve the integrity of the court, which means he doesn't want to do anything that's so crazy that may ruin the image of the Supreme Court. John Roberts, even though he is very anti-abortion and he's very conservative, doesn't want this thing to pass the way it is. However, he's not a swing vote anymore. As of right now, we have 3 moderate Democrats or liberals on the bench. We have 1 institutionalist, which is John Roberts, and 5 crazy conservative justices right now, 3 of which who were just appointed.
And one of which was a stolen seat.
Right. So what are the likely outcomes that are probably going to happen? Well, credit to Andrew Torres of Opening Arguments, which I highly recommend you take a listen to because they did a fantastic breakdown of this. As of right now, there are 3 votes for the idea of saying that there is no privacy in having an abortion. And that basically means that it's going to end all viability cases moving forward. And that's probably one of the more likely scenarios to happen. And we know 3 for sure, which are Thomas, Alito, and
Barrett?
Correct. They already wrote on this and they already expressed their opinions on this. That means we need to now appeal to John Roberts, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh is definitely going to go for this. Who knows what John Roberts is going to do? So we have to beg Gorsuch to not do this.
And Gorsuch and Kavanaugh were specifically picked to do this.
That's our most likely scenario. They could go even farther beyond that. So there are no real good outcomes here because at the end of the day, elections have consequences.
And also just having terrible leaders in Congress has consequences.
So now we're stuck with a potentially horrible decision that's going to affect millions of women going forward in about a year. So be ready for it because it's going to be bad.
Who wants a back alley abortion?
Oh,
Do people even have wire coat hangers anymore?
Jesus.
Might start up an industry.
And in other news,
And in should have been aborted news.
Mark McCloskey, the guy who he and his wife held guns to Black Lives Matter protesters in Missouri, officially filed to run for Senate.
You may remember the images of the couple standing outside of their home with loaded weapons pointed at peaceful protesters.
So a little context on this. Missouri Senator Roy Blunt, who is a Republican, announced that he will be not seeking a 3rd term for Senate, which thus leading to an open primary. That opened it up to a large amount of people who wanted to come take this, both, we'll say, more moderate and more extreme, including Mr. McCloskey.
Who was a speaker at the Republican convention
He was.
last year.
Well, he and his wife were.
Correct.
And then on Tucker Carlson, because
Why wouldn't you
of
go
course.
on Tucker Carlson?
He said, quote, "When the angry mob came to destroy my house and kill my family, I took a stand against them."
Honest reporting of the situation.
To kill his family?
That's why they were there, Joe. They came to destroy his house and kill his family while they were all unarmed.
They were literally walking by it.
With
They didn't care about it
signs,
at
though.
all.
They could have killed him with those signs saying that Black Lives Matter.
He went on to say, "I have always been a Republican, but never a politician. God came knocking on my door disguised as an angry mob."
So he was going to kill Jesus?
I don't know. God came knocking on my door disguised as an angry mob. It woke me up. What does that even mean? I don't even understand. I don't get it. And now, while likely McCloskey is definitely not projected to do anything in the Senate race, it's Missouri and you never know.
I'm sure he'll raise a lot of money.
I'm sure he will too. I mean, he's kind of like a pseudo celebrity right now in Missouri.
And in the GOP.
So, man. Oh.
Well, let's end the headlines on a positive note. The New York State investigation into Donald Trump and his finances is now a criminal probe.
I'm so happy. I am so happy.
If this does turn into anything, Joe, this will definitely end up being a main segment at some point.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited. I am so excited.
We have a quote here from Fabian Levy, the spokesperson for the New York Attorney General, Letitia James. The
He's a badass,
investigation
by the way.
is no longer purely civil in nature. We are now actively investigating the Trump Organization in a criminal capacity, along with the Manhattan DA. We have no additional comment at this time.
And that's basically all we really know. We don't really know exactly what they're looking into, or as far as criminal charges, we're guessing it could be anything along the lines of like tax fraud, tax evasion, and things like that. Maybe campaign finance fraud, but we're not sure.
I have heard some speculation based on where the civil investigation was initially, that it might have something to do with the way that money was funneled to Ivanka.
All through like consulting fees?
Right. The consulting fees, instead of like that way she didn't have to pay inheritance tax and
I can see
capital
that.
gains tax, all that she was basically funneled money the same way the New York Times reported that Donald Trump was funneled money from his father. You know, when he says he was only given $1 million to start his business and they found it was something closer to the neighborhood of 400 million. It seemed like possibly he was doing the same thing with Ivanka, but since he lost most of his money during his adult life, not as much.
I mean, he's a
involved,
self-made
but-
man.
Oh yeah, pulled himself up by his bootstraps.
His $2 million bootstraps. So, and while we don't know exactly what the criminal probe is or what they're probing into, we do know that for sure, if they are announcing that it is becoming a criminal probe and not just a civil probe, probe. They've got something.
It's the first time an ex-president has ever been under criminal investigation.
Yep. But are we surprised? I don't think so.
Nope.
So at least there's a little bit of good news at the end of the day. Our country's going to complete crap, but Trump may go to jail. Oh, wouldn't it be so great if he dies in jail?
I wished he would die of COVID, and you were against it. So he's got to die at some point.
Right. I'm not saying he needs to die like now, but
that would be fine.
If he has to die at some point, I'd love for him to die in jail.
It'd save the taxpayers of New York a lot of money if he were to die right now.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Speaking of charging taxpayers a lot of money, let's talk about the election audit going on in Maricopa County.
Let's do it.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? It's hard to get any word in with this clown.
So let's talk about the currently ongoing election audit in Maricopa County, which includes Phoenix. This is a county that Joe Biden won by something in the neighborhood of 40,000 votes. And remember, he only won Arizona by 10,000 votes. So this is the county that made the difference. So it's a highly contested race after the presidency, and they're finally getting around to doing a recount, right? Oh, this makes sense. Actually,
stop the steal. I'm ready.
Previous recounts and audits have already been conducted. Representatives from all major political parties did a hand count of county ballots after the election. It looked at all votes cast for 5 races on 8,802 ballots, a statistically significant number of ballots as state law requires. The audit showed that the county counted votes with 100% accuracy. The county would have expanded the audit if problems were found. Also, in January, after waves of protests, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors approved 2 additional audits of election equipment. The board hired 2 independent firms, Pro V&V and SLI Compliance, which are certified by the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission. The firms conducted their separate audits in February and found no issues. The audits included tests for malicious software and hardware, source codes, network and internet connectivity, and accuracy to detect vote switching.
Okay.
Observers from both parties were invited to attend, and the audits were live streamed.
So that's done.
We actually had real professionals already conduct audits of the voting equipment and recounts of the ballots.
And there's no more story because we live in the rational world, and that's it.
Well, the Republican-run Arizona State Senate subpoenaed the 2.1 million ballots cast and nearly 400 county voting machines against the objections of the Republican majority, 4-1, county supervisors, and multiple lawsuits seeking to prevent the audit. Keep in mind, they are only auditing the presidential and Senate races out of Arizona, both won by Democrats, while most of the other races were run by Republicans. They claim that that's just the most expedient thing to do, that they don't have time to look into the other races. Huge coincidence
but
that
wait,
they're
why?
just focusing on the 2 major races.
You're still counting the supposed ballots. What are you saying? Like it'd be the most expedient thing to do to only take one of the votes from one ballot and not just take the rest of the ballot?
2 of them, again, the 2 races that were won by the other party.
It's a spreadsheet problem, for God's sakes. Oh my God.
The state Senate Republicans hired a Florida-based software security consulting firm
Great, not Florida's involved.
known as Cyber Ninjas.
Yep, that's a Florida company.
To conduct the audit. There are other companies involved, but Cyber Ninjas is in charge. They are running the audit. They have no experience in election auditing or equipment, and when asked, no one in the Florida GOP has ever heard of the company before, according to Politico.
Great.
Company founder Doug Logan has been a big supporter of election conspiracy theories, retweeting a post stating, "I'm tired of hearing people say there was no fraud. It happened. It's real, and people better get wise fast." And he also shared content from Sidney Powell, Trump's lawyer that accused Dominion of being corrupt and
It's not being sued for billions.
currently being sued.
The Kraken.
And Lauren Boebert, the crazy gun nut rep from Colorado.
Who has a GED and is very proud of it.
And the account that he used to promote their lies has since been deleted. He was also involved in efforts to try to prove there was election fraud in Antrim County, Michigan, according to an Antrim County court document. He was part of a team that examined the county's voting machines and claimed in a report that they found errors designed to create fraud. State and county officials said the report was biased and identified a slew of problems with the team's analysis. If you remember from our election episode, we talked about this specific circumstance where it was actually caused, there was the thing where, they had all these votes that were for Joe Biden in this heavily Republican area, and then all of a sudden it switched
to Trump.
Mm-hmm. And that was because of user error. And it's a very complicated scenario, but basically it involves two of the races being changed pretty close to the election. Like details from two of the races had to be updated.
Okay.
So they updated the information in just the areas where those two races, there were local races. So as you know, not everybody has the same ballot in different counties. So they updated just the areas where that would matter, and they didn't update everything else. So when they stuck the data from those areas that they had updated those races in with everything else, it caused a data mismatch, which caused that issue because basically things didn't line up the way they were supposed to. But it was found before the data was made official, and that's why it suddenly changed, because of human error. Not because there was anything wrong with the equipment, didn't have anything to do with Dominion, and it didn't have anything to do with election fraud.
But we talked about that on that episode as well, which is just, this was reported immediately. There's nothing hidden here.
Yet the guy behind Cyber Ninjas, the company behind this audit, said that that was the deliberate election fraud, and that's what he found after examining their equipment. So he's already proven that he has no problem either being completely incompetent or just straight out lying to push this agenda that the election was fraudulent. So we've already proven that this guy cannot be trusted. He has no experience other than what we just talked about in being a complete hack or fraud. And we've got a quote from Mr. Logan. Recently, there have been several articles claiming I am biased and therefore unfit to run the lead company involved in the audit of Maricopa County.
Yep, that's correct.
Which is correct.
That's very correct.
These need to be answered to give the American people confidence in this audit, because this is not about me or anyone else involved, and it is not about a media narrative, but about the systemic, transparent method we have created to ensure Arizonan and American confidence in the election process and results. So he's very proud about his transparency here. Transparent method they've created. So let's talk about how transparent this audit has been so far. A judge had to order Cyber Ninjas to provide their written procedures and training materials. Logan refused to disclose who is paying him or who is counting the ballots, and will not commit to using bipartisan teams for the process.
Why?
Although it has been stated by the liaison between the state senate and Cyber Ninjas, who is a former Republican state secretary, that it is 70% Republican and 30% basically other, which not only includes Democrats, but also independents and libertarians. So at least 70% Republican. I saw a news story where they were looking through the parking lot at all these people's cars, and there were so many Trump bumper stickers.
Oh, great.
And there was an InfoWars bumper sticker.
Great.
These are the people that are counting ballots now.
That Arizona taxpayers are paying for.
They're incredibly partisan, and I mean, this is a joke.
Oh my God.
Christina Bobb from OAN, One America News Network, and Sidney Powell, aforementioned crazy lawyer, helped lead many of the post-election lawsuits that were dismissed, announced that they are fundraising for this effort. Patrick Byrne, the former CEO of Overstock.com, who's written a book purporting to show how the election was rigged,
Oh, really?
has launched a nonprofit advocacy organization called the America Project that is raising money for the audit. Byrne said on Telegram, which is like the crazy conservative Twitter, he donated $1 million to go toward the audit. And I believe they've raised something like 1.7 million so far, and their goal is just over 2 million.
Well, so that's what I was going to ask. So this is how they're getting funded, because I do know that like they were supposed to only get some funding from the actual state government itself, so that they had to get additional funding elsewhere. So this is
they got $150,000 from the state senate.
So this is where they're getting that additional funding to do this.
Yeah, because this is obviously going to cost millions of dollars
Okay.
to do. When asked, Logan would not commit to disclosing the donors and would not provide an estimate for the cost of his audit.
Great.
Very transparent. So what have the ninjas been up to? What have they accomplished so far? This has been going on now for over 3 weeks.
I'm ready.
One of the court-ordered documents detailing recount procedures laid out plans to use microscope cameras and shine UVA and UVB lights on allegedly suspect ballots, which, by the way, I'd heard might also harm the ballots, which would be against the law. They have to be kept for 2 years.
Okay. So why?
Which aroused suspicion because of a QAnon conspiracy theory that Trump watermarked legitimate ballots after the election.
He watermarked legitimate
So they're
ballots.
looking for watermarks on the ballots because only legitimate ones are supposed to have watermarks. And according to the people that were there for these audits, no ballots are legitimate because there were no watermarks found on any of them because
that's not a thing.
It's not real because it's a crazy QAnon conspiracy. Like every QAnon conspiracy, it has been proven to be false, but yet people still believe this nonsense.
But that's like a 10-second Googleable conspiracy. People are paying for this?
Yes. This is what, and when pressed.
How much money? I want $1.7 million. I could do this. I'll just make up shit and then just, say, hey, I'm working on it. And then 3 months later say, yeah, I didn't find anything.
I got one for you. What they need to do is look at all of the envelopes that the mail-in ballots came in.
Okay.
And try to detect panda saliva. Because that would tell you that those ballots came from China. And in that theme,
dear God,
if you think that's crazy.
I do think that's crazy.
Last week, John Brakey, an activist, a crazy QAnon activist.
Wait. We don't get to. No. You do not get to move off from panda saliva.
Well, hope this is related. John Brakey, an activist assisting with the audit, said officials were looking for bamboo fibers in a nod to a baseless conspiracy theory that ballots were smuggled in from China. I do think it's somewhat of a waste of time, he said, but it will help unhinge people. I don't think so.
They're looking for panda saliva.
No, they're not. I made that up, Joe.
Oh.
They're looking for bamboo. Well, see, it's not any worse.
That makes me so upset. That sounded believable. No. Oh, God. Oh, I totally 100% just believe that.
Yeah, no, I just made that up.
I'm so angry that seems so believable. I didn't even question you. I'm like, I didn't see it in my notes, but all right, so you must have found something that I didn't see before.
I didn't put it in here, but there was a theory that was going around.
Oh.
And it doesn't have anything to do with the audit, but it is a conspiracy theory surrounding this election that ballots were shredded and fed to chickens because one of the Arizona supervisors has a large chicken farm.
And then they laid eggs, which had Biden ballots in them.
Well, and then because on March 6th, he had a fire at his chicken farm and 165,000 chickens were killed in the fire.
Wait.
The theory goes that was to destroy the evidence that his chickens were fed shredded ballots.
What?
Why you wouldn't just burn the ballots to begin with?
Right.
And you would murder 165,000 chickens. But we're not really, again, panda saliva doesn't seem so crazy now, does it?
Okay, so let's go back to the more rational one. Why are they looking for bamboo?
Well, Brakey said they're not going to find bamboo. But if they do, I think we need to know, don't you?
But why?
Just like every crazy conspiracy theory. So, well, I'm just asking questions.
But why? So, why does finding bamboo fibers equate to China smuggled in ballots?
Because that's how they make paper, Joe.
Oh. I get it now.
So, spoiler alert, they didn't find any bamboo.
Because we smuggled our ballots in from Russia or something.
Or you would be smart enough to not use. Why would you need to smuggle them in from China? Is China running this then? Or, because if it's the Democrats, which is generally the accepted theory for these conspiracies, why would they need to go through China? It doesn't even make any sense.
We're getting all these ballots from the UK. Why is it so soggy? I don't get it.
It's very foggy
Yeah.
and cold. I think it's just because they could throw that racist
Oh,
bamboo
100%.
nonsense in there. I mean,
Well, and it's also because that's just their sworn boogeyman enemy right now.
and that is literally what Cyber Ninjas is doing. They're not actually counting the ballots. That's a different company that's actually counting them. They're literally just shining UV lights on stuff and checking for bamboo fibers.
Great.
Jeff Ellington, the president and CEO of Runbeck Election Services, which prints the ballots for Maricopa County,
All right.
said he couldn't figure out what exactly auditors were looking for by examining the paper of the ballots. What they're doing is so cryptic. It's hard to know exactly what their game plan is on that. Because they're just QAnon people. And it's not like Cyber Ninjas is a huge company, by the way, or like a big consulting firm. On LinkedIn, they state that they have between 2 and 10 employees.
Yes, I thought they only had like 10 people.
At most. They
Great.
won't say, again, they won't say because they're so transparent, but it's between 2 and 10.
Great.
So it's really just one guy and whoever works for him, a couple people, and he's a huge conspiracy nut. So, of course, it's crazy.
So what are other people saying about this then?
Well, Tammy Patrick, a former Maricopa County elections official and senior advisor at Democracy Fund, a nonpartisan foundation aiming to improve American elections. So somebody who actually knows what they're talking about.
Well, no, is it a nonpartisan where it's like they're just all secret Hillary voters or something like that? Or what is this?
Sure, they're all just secret shills. So what she said, the documents referring to those that were released due to court order definitely have a lack of understanding of the specific way in which elections are conducted in Arizona. There seems to be a predetermined outcome here
Oh,
that
really?
I think is really problematic.
Oh, really?
And she is again correct, proven by what Mr. Logan has said publicly and who he's endorsed. He already knows there was fraud in the election. So of course he's going to find it.
Okay, so then what?
So, looking at the audit documents, which were released by the court, reveal an effort that experts say is out of touch with reality.
How so? Other than the
Other
fact that-
than the
other I can just
bamboo and the watermarks that don't exist.
okay.
In an extreme threat scenario,
What does that even mean?
They initially asked for the National Guard to protect their counting efforts. And when that was denied by the Arizona
The
governor,
Cyber Ninjas asked for
yes.
this?
So when that request was denied by the Arizona governor, they decided to come up with their own fantasy scenario. The assessment suggests that a coordinated attack involving a chemical fire and disrupted traffic could allow the recount facility to be breached. A quote from this document: Antifa will likely use the backed up traffic in those 6 lanes to slow police and fire response to any perimeter breach operation.
That's so specific.
Adding that could lead to nearly unmitigated access to the facility. So they and they said Antifa. So they are envisioning a scenario in which there is a coordinated Antifa militia that is trying to get at this recount, and they start a fire at a chemical plant that draws all of the emergency response away from the arena where this is being done, and then, just it's like out of a movie. And then the secret
We're going to Ocean's
team-
11 this?
Yeah,
Are
the
you
secret
serious?
team moves in the
But
back, and
it sounds like they have the plan. It sounds like they're ready to do this at any moment because they know exactly what they're supposed to do. You think Antifa's going to do this? No, it's going to be these. It's going to be the Cyber Ninjas.
they're doing what these QAnon people do, just come up with these crazy scenarios based on movies,
So
as we talked about in our QAnon episode.
And that's what they consider like an extreme threat scenario.
That's
They-
what
they
they're
just-
prepared for.
They just so they just made up a random scenario and just said, yeah, like who knows, this could totally happen.
I'm guessing they have guards stationed, like walking back and forth in ninja outfits. That's what I'm envisioning. It would actually be probably better spent doing that than what they're actually doing.
So did that do anything?
Did it do anything?
Or was this in the document that was rejected?
Yes. No, this was in the documents.
Oh, this
that
was already in the document. Okay.
Right. They had that in, like, this is the threat scenario.
And
that
then
we're
their governor
prepared
said
for.
that was stupid. And
No, this is what they released after. This is in their documents that they submitted to the state senate. Okay, you want to know what our procedures are? Here they are. And this is one of the things in there. It's like they're they're stated that this scenario could occur.
So what did the Senate say?
They haven't said anything. They paid for all of this. I mean, the county board of supervisors has been speaking out against this.
Oh my God.
Since this began, because they're the ones that look like idiots, because they're the ones that have already done all these recounts.
If I was a
certified
Democrat in
election.
Arizona, I would be posting this story every day up until the midterms.
And that's why I wanted to talk about this, because it is crazy. So we're going to keep going. It ain't over yet.
There's more?
In a letter last week to the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors,
Okay.
State Senate, and she's really the one responsible for this. She's the one who hired Cyber Ninjas. State Senate President Karen Fan
Of course it's a Karen.
wrote that the main database for all election-related data for the 2020 election has been removed and asked the board for an explanation.
Removed.
So the Twitter account for the Senate audit, which is, I believe, at Arizona Audit.
They made their own Twitter account for
Yes,
this?
they have their own Twitter account for this. I guarantee you this is Doug Logan, the cyber ninja himself running this, said,
Well, he knows Twitter, man. He's a cyber ninja, man.
Maricopa County deleted a directory full of election databases from the 2020 election days before the election equipment was delivered to the audit. This is spoliation of evidence! Exclamation point. And this prompted a
What?
response from former President Donald Trump. The entire database of Maricopa County in Arizona has been deleted. This is illegal, and the Arizona State Senate, who is leading the forensic audit, weird capitalization, as
course.
always,
Yeah.
is up in arms. So
What?
this started a huge uproar. Literally everyone is like, oh my God, they found this evidence. They're trying to hide election materials and deleting the voter registration database and all this, which I don't know what good that would do when you have all of the 2 million ballots.
Well, okay, I want to make something very clear here too, and
And it would be illegal for them to actually do this.
Right.
So this started a huge uproar. You know, they're saying that the county board of supervisors tampered with evidence, illegally deleted election data.
and they have evidence of this.
So, what was the response from the corrupt, though somehow still Republican county board?
Sure.
Maricopa County Recorder, Stephen Richer, a Republican, and the county's Board of Supervisors, as we stated, 4 of the 5 are also Republicans, responded to the claims with a scathing letter Monday that laid out a series of mistakes auditors had made. Among them, they had not properly reconstructed the RAID storage array used by the county when creating copies of the hard drives, which left them unable to access files that otherwise would have been readily accessible. And if you're not familiar with RAID,
I was just going to ask about that.
so it's a way of serializing hard drives.
Okay.
It can be for backup, it can also be for speed, but
Okay.
and there's different types of RAID. And
You got the bug killer, you got the bee killer.
well, they're numbered 0 through 5, I think, are the common ones. But so if you don't reconstruct it, knowing which RAID, which type of RAID was used, that's probably what happened here. Is they didn't reassemble the data properly, which, you know, again, for a security firm.
Okay, hold on. So is this basically the equivalent of seeing a puzzle fully formed, tearing it all apart, and then reconstructing it by just throwing a bunch of random pieces at each other, saying the pieces don't fit, and say that the puzzle is broken or that you're missing pieces because you're not assembling the puzzle correctly?
Pretty much. It's like you left a bunch of pieces under the box and then you put it together and you're like, what the hell? We're missing a bunch of pieces. You sold us a broken puzzle. And it's like, no, actually look right under here.
Or I think it's more like the equivalent of like, I'm trying to put a corner piece in the damn middle of the puzzle. Like, see how it doesn't fit? Why does this not add up?
So Ben Cotton, the founder of Cypher, CYFIR, which is one of the companies involved in the audit. As we said, there are other companies here. It's not all Cyber Ninjas, but Cyber Ninjas are in charge. Said in the closed hearing that was held by Senate Republicans on Tuesday to discuss this, that the county's explanation was correct, and now he does have access to this data.
Okay.
So yes, they created this entire stink. Of course, Trump bought into it because that guy loves the conspiracy theory.
Right.
Without having any of the necessary information, you could have stopped and thought just for a second, like, hey, maybe we assembled these RAID arrays wrong. And that's why this data is missing, especially since all they had to literally do was ask, and they would have been told, no, we didn't delete the data. It's right here.
Instead, they did the most Republican thing ever. Based on insufficient evidence, they went absolutely crazy and
went public and freaked out and created. I'm sure there are people that believe that this was deleted still. Of course there are. Because there are people that just saw Trump's post about it and totally believe that.
Therefore, it has to be true.
Yep. So where are we right now?
In hell. We are in hell, Jason.
The initial projection for counting the 2.1 million ballots was 20 days. We are now at more than 3 weeks of counting, and the auditors said they need another 6 weeks.
Why?
They've only counted less than 500,000 ballots, so they're not even a quarter of the way through.
I was going to say, like 5 people working.
The audit is currently on a break.
Why?
Because the Veterans Memorial Coliseum Arena, where the audit has taken place, was hosting high school graduations this week.
Damn public schools.
And again, they were supposed to be done by now, so they didn't have the venue rented out for that length of time. Counting will, and there is a lot of concern now about who has access to these machines now, that they're just sitting around, and all of these ballots, and we kind of will talk a little bit about that in a second.
All these woke high schoolers, man, are just gonna come steal them. Oh, we should have totally done that. Come on.
Counting will pick back up again next week and run through the end of June.
We could have totally paid like some random high school stoner like $15. Say, hey, just take these hard drives and just kind of switch them around a little bit. It'll freak them the hell out.
Change it from RAID 3 to RAID 5.
Yeah.
So that delay could cost taxpayers an additional $1,000 a day, as much as $42,000 just in air conditioning and operational expenses.
Turn RAID 9 over and makes it look like a 6.
And also, just in case that's not enough money to lose, Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, who she's been a very vocal opponent of this audit from the beginning,
okay,
said Thursday that the voting machines that Republicans turned over are no longer safe for use in future elections.
Great.
I have grave concerns regarding the security and integrity of these machines, given that the chain of custody, a critical security tenet, has been compromised, and election officials do not know what was done to the machines while under Cyber Ninja's control, which sounds like it should be in a movie.
I was like, that sounds like a sci-fi movie premise.
In real life. Hobbs wrote in her letter to the county's Board of Supervisors. Unfortunately, after a loss of physical custody and control, no comprehensive methods exist to fully rehabilitate the compromised equipment or provide adequate assurance that they remain safe to use. And in Arizona, the Secretary of State can decertify machinery in consultation with the state's Election Equipment Certification Committee, a 3-person panel appointed by Hobbs.
Okay. So Arizona's out money.
And these are millions of dollars.
Right.
For 400 machines, there's tabulation machines and the actual voting machines themselves. And the state, I think, ultimately would be responsible. I think that was part of their agreement, that they would pay for any equipment that was damaged during this audit. So
now they're out of equipment.
Taxpayers,
So now they're out of equipment too.
You're going to be paying millions of dollars for this absolute circus put on by state Republicans.
But it was at least worth investigating, right?
Well, if you think Donald Trump won the election and you want him to be made president,
I do. I really do.
this audit cannot change the election results. It would be unconstitutional.
So you're telling me this whole thing with bamboo, hand of saliva, aliens from space, Elvis, crazy people from Florida would have been for nothing from the get-go.
If you want the results of the election changed, yes, it is all for nothing. So
why are we doing this?
The stated goal is to ensure election security for the future.
Oh, that talking point.
Which, of course, is going to be what they use to push for the GOP voter suppression laws that they've already pushed in 47 states that we've talked about, including Arizona. So they didn't wait for the results of this audit before pushing their legislation anyway. So why is that possibly the goal for this? What they really want is that report that is going to be crafted by a pro-Trump conspiracy theorist.
That's going to have a crazy headline or title.
And they're going to find all sorts of... He's already lied about what he found in Michigan. So, of course, he's going to lie about what they'll find here.
And then you're going to have local news agencies just eat it up saying, report so-and-so found this in Maricopa County's election.
You're going to have everybody on Facebook posting it. And you're going to definitely have OAN, who is paying for this, reporting that on their so-called news channel. And you're going to have Newsmax. And you're going to have Fox News, and you're going to have InfoWars, and you're going to have everybody's conspiracy theorist parents and family posting it online, sharing it on Twitter. That's what they're paying for. That's why they're doing this. Also, it will, of course, cast an air of illegitimacy over the Biden presidency. Oh, he's not really the president. Oh, they cheated. All those pandas they had mailing out those ballots, that's how he won. And it's fuel for that base. That is the new GOP base, that crazy pro-Trump QAnon Alex Jones wacko. That is the Republican Party. The modern GOP is that guy reading the Q drops and baking the bread or whatever nonsense terminology they have. This is just fuel for them, to keep them interested in the Republican Party, to keep them believing this nonsense and keep them engaged.
Well, that even reminds me of the polls that were coming out a while ago that were saying, what was it, 6 in 10 Republicans believe that the election was actually stolen?
Yeah, 68%.
Yeah, the majority of Republicans today are complete insane conspiracy theorists. There's no such thing as the party of Lincoln anymore. And we already talked about this, and I know, so I don't want to beat it with the dead horse, but, well...
Beat it with a dead horse.
Yeah, exactly. But I think you're completely right with this. And if we're going to actually get serious here, you're completely correct when this entire charade is all based on making more voter suppression laws, which are passing all throughout the country as we speak right now, just so that GOP can win in 2022 and 2024. They're using taxpayer dollars to basically try to refund election campaigns for the Republican futures. That's all this is. They don't care about truth. They don't care about honesty. They don't care about the integrity of the election. They don't, because if they did, then they would actually talk to the real experts and actually listen to what they're saying, even because they are Republicans. And we already saw in places like Georgia, where Brad Raffensperger, who is a very staunch Republican, became ousted as a rhino. I'm sure they're doing the same thing to Katie Hobbs.
Katie Hobbs is a Democrat.
Well, then even worse. She's probably part of the deep state then. I don't know.
Marjorie Taylor Greene has already pushed for this type of audit in Georgia. And there is also another pro-Trump group looking for this type of audit in a specific city in New Hampshire as well. This is just the beginning.
So we're going to see more of this.
Yes.
We're going to see it in Wisconsin too, aren't we?
Eventually. I don't think we're top of the priority having a Democrat governor that can veto a lot of this. But
we have a crazy GOP-run House and Senate.
Yes, our state legislature is nuts.
Man. Do we have anything good to end this on? You gave me Trump going to jail the last time I asked.
Well, Trump going to jail and or dying tomorrow, who knows, would certainly take a lot of wind out of the sails of a lot of these people, because they are, at the end of the day, Trumpists. But is this going to end? Well, it could destroy the GOP. It could cause a split. That you want good news, you want best case scenario. Best case scenario is this keeps happening. They go even further. You get the Trump base just totally embraces the crazy conspiracy side of their party, and it causes a split with the more reality-based Republicans, like we saw with Liz Cheney.
So you're telling me that Republicans are going to do what Democrats did in 2016?
I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm telling you, if you want a rose-colored glasses view of this and what might happen, that's what might happen. That's the best case scenario, is this causes a fracture within the Republican Party to the extent where a third party emerges and would literally mean that they never win an election for at least the next 20 years, probably.
All right. Well, unless you have anything else, I think we could wrap it up. In the meantime, I'm going to go figure out and strategize with Canada to find more easier Canadian paper to use for the 2022 election.
I'll have to search for beaver DNA. Maple
Oh,
syrup.
there's maple syrup in here. No way. What is this bell? Look like a maple leaf. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively. It's getting hot, hot, hot. See what I did there?
Yeah. I got it. Arizona song. Hot desert.
Yeah.
I get it.
What did Arizona say to the United States?
What did Arizona say to the United States?
I love you too, son.
Ugh, that doesn't even make any sense.
No, because I reversed it. It was supposed to be United States to Arizona. God damn it.
Good joke.